So we are told, we get the very first teaching after we learn to, when we're practicing the gradual path, after we meditate on the value and the preciousness of relying on our spiritual mentor, we start to think about our precious opportunity by having a human life. And one of the analogies that comes from the Buddha himself in the sutras, he describes how rare this is. And so he tells the story about the blind turtle that lives under the sea. And once every 100 years, this turtle surfaces for air. And that there is a golden yoke floating on the surface of the sea. And so having a precious human rebirth, that's not just any old human life, but a life where you actually meet the teachings and have an opportunity to practice the Dharma. So a precious human rebirth is as rare as the chances of the turtle coming up from the bottom of the sea every 100 years and putting its head, her head, through the golden yoke. And I think all the years I've heard that story, I've had this kind of, there's a little bit of disbelief, it's a little bit of skepticism around, that is so rare. How can that really be true? And although I'm not at all a mathematician, there's a part of my mind that wants to actually figure out the odds someday. It just is a stupid, really, intellectual activity. But it hits me that way, But lately, again, I've been thinking, and I meditate on this kind of a lot to really invigorate my practice and help remind me, not just on the turtle, but help me remind me what a tremendous opportunity we have right this very minute. Anyone who's practiced the teachings, anyone who's watching this video, anyone who's ever come in contact with the Buddha's teachings, this I can see is extremely rare. Is it that rare? Well, I'm actually moving towards thinking that maybe it is. Recently we were hearing again the story of the life of the Buddha, and the aspect of that story that struck me the most this time was about his two meditation teachers. Before the Buddha, when he was still Siddhartha, when he had renounced his family and went out in search for how he was going to overcome the suffering of sentient beings that he had seen, he looked for the best teachers, and he found two who were very advanced in meditative concentration. And he very quickly, mastered what they had to offer, and he ended up leaving because although they could take him to very deep states of samadhi or very deep states of concentration and bliss, they could not overcome the cycle of existence itself, and that's what he was seeking. So, of course, that's what he ultimately found. And after his enlightenment, as he was kind of reflecting on who could hear these teachings, who would actually understand what I'm talking about, his first thought was, I'll go talk to these two teachers. But he had discovered that both had died. So I don't know if it says anywhere whatever happened to them, if the Buddha actually went to the God realm somewhere and tried to teach them someday, somehow. But what I can imagine is, knowing what I know about rebirth, if these two meditation teachers had such mastery of deep meditation, they are probably in a realm where they are meditating in bliss for a very long time. So they not only missed him, or missed the teachings of his enlightenment when he was enlightened, if they're still in that realm meditating on bliss, they're missing all the subsequent centuries and millennia of continued spiritual masters. So who knows when their karma runs out? They drop to the lower realms, which is the way things happen. Do they then get a rebirth at a time when a Buddha's been born? Do they get a rebirth at a time when the teachings are alive and they can still meet teachings? Who knows? But we have. We have. And so this thing about, so often I'm hearing lately people saying, gosh, I'm 70 years old, I wish I'd met the Dharma when I was 10. Or, I'm 80 years old, I wish I'd met the Dharma sooner. Or even I'm 20 years old, I wish I'd met the Dharma when I was a child. So all those things are great things to aspire for in our next lives. But the fact is, we have met the Dharma now. And the fact is, we have the opportunity to practice whenever we pick it up. And whatever our paths to coming to the Dharma, whether it takes a very long time in this life, whatever we've had to purify to get to the opportunity to meet the teachings, and then maintain the relationship or maintain the opportunities to continue, because we also see people who come to the Dharma and then for who knows what kind of reasons they're off doing something else in the course of their life. So just meeting the Dharma young doesn't mean that you're going to have a whole lifetime to practice. So to really keep this image of the golden yoke is starting to get clearer and clearer and clearer in my mind. That turtle coming up, and this old turtle actually made it through the ring this time. And what does that mean for my life? And what does that mean for the lives of each of us? What can we do with the chance that we have? So I just wanted to share that insight because I've been quite concerned about those people, those two great masters sitting in the God realm, not meeting the Buddha. So Je Rinpoche, of course, has beautiful quotes throughout his Lamrim Chenmo, and I wanted to, he cites from the sutra this beautiful quote. Even though you have been born a human with such limitless suffering, you still have the best of situations. So no matter what our lives have been like, you still have the best of situations. It is difficult to attain this even in 10 million eons. Even when the deities die, the other deities say, may you have a happy rebirth. By happy rebirth, they mean a human rebirth. So with our great fortune, may we practice and support each other along the path to have successive human rebirths until we attain awakening.